Hello friend, this is Amit. So last video we already see that how we can utilize a different kind of Hibernate provided algorithm like increment, HILO, sequence hilo, UID, GUID, identity, native, assigned, select. So here actually I just in this video we will try to create our primary key generation algorithm to implementing a identity generator interface and by overriding the particular method, and we will see that how we can write our algorithm and how we can utilize it. And we also I will explain about that composite primary key that I already explained. I will already means here I will so one more example how we can create a composite primary key. So here exactly how we are doing. So whenever we going to write any ID generator or any primary key, we have primary key generator algorithm, custom primary key generator algorithm. So we have to follow few steps. That step is that first write our own ID generator by implementing the interface called identifier generator. So we have to write any classes, and after that we have to implement that particular identifier generator interface that available in org.hibernate.id.identifier package. So any classes, and that some method is there, that public serialize generate, and that have two parameter, session implementer SI and object obj. Through that we can implement our identity generator. So first thing is that first we have to write any class. That class must be implemented by identifier generator, and that identifier generator available in org.hibernate.id.id generator package. That have one abstract method inside that interface. That method is public serializable and generate. So that return type is serializable because we are dealing with outside our JVM, that's region. Its return type is serializable. So its return type is serializable, and generate method is responsible to generate a primary key. So here we will write our required ID generator logic, how it will be achieve, how we can achieve the by means generating a particular primary key. Whenever we going to generate or whenever going to write a primary key generator, we have to think only 2 points. First point is that primary key never be null, so we cannot allow null as a primary key. Second thing is that primary key must be unique. So if already some primary key inside that particular table, then we cannot utilize that primary key again. So whenever we going to generate a primary key, we will write some logic to generate that particular primary key in some pattern, follow them some pattern like a sequence 1 2 3 4 5, like that visual path underscore 1 2 3 4 5, like that some IP address, after that time stamp, and converting to the some hexadecimal kind of thing. But anything, any logic we will going to write to generate a primary key, first thing we have to focus on that. We will check on the database what exact primary key is there, and what is the means if we generate a sequential, then we will check that what is the highest value of the primary key available in the table. For example, we are generating a sequential kind of thing like 1 2 3 4 5 6, and we have to generate some new primary key, and just think that we have up to 5 we already generated. So fifth element, that primary key is 5, that is already stored in the database. So we have to generate a 6. So how we know that 5 already generated? So we will fetch the data from the database, and we will check that what is the highest primary key. Then we found that this is a 5, then after that we will increment it. So here two tasks we have to do. We have to fetch the data from the database, and we have to check that what the primary key is there, and according to that we will generate a unique primary key. So the two things is we will focus in whenever we are writing a primary key. Whenever we want to generate a primary key, that primary key must not null, as well as primary key must be unique. When we writing a generation logic under the generate method, we have to do two operations. First operation, that will be check that what the highest value that is available inside the table, and after that we have to apply our pattern generation logic and we will generate the primary key. So once our class is ready, we will write one class. After that, implementing identifier generator interface and overriding a generate class. The generate method return type is serializable and it have a session implementer and object as a 2 parameter, and it is throwing a hibernate exception. And inside we will write a logic to generating a primary key that inside the matter of generate. And after that, once our class is ready, we have to register that class inside that primary key generation algorithm, where we are writing a id, column, sid, name, type, and generator class something we can write. So here we will specify a complete class path, and through that we can understand where our id generator is implemented. So I have id class and my class available com.id.id generator, and we can implement this id generator here. Before of that, if you remember, we are using an increment here in all the example. We already see that how HILO, how GUID, we can implement UID, we can implement here. So now what is that, we have to provide complete classified path. For example, that our class that is implemented id generator interface, and that have implementation of generate interface, that return type is serializable, that have 2 parameters, session implementer and object, and that method is throwing a hibernate exception that we will register exact here. We have to provide complete classified path of com, like a visual path dot id dot generator, because my class available in com dot visual path dot id, and my class some custom id generator, and that is implementing identity generator, and the same thing be implemented. So after that, it will be a automatically work. Other thing, hibernate runtime system will be take care, and it will be a generate a primary key. So exactly same what I explained here, it is here. So I have id generator here. So after id generator, we have a get next sid, that I will show you that how we can utilize that thing in the program. And here we have the client all, we will generate like that. Here before of that primary key, we are not initializing in the constructor, but now here we can initialize in the constructor. First we will check that this example, and after that we will go through that this second example. So I will check here how exactly we can do and how exactly we can achieve this identity generator thing. Yeah, so this is a example. So what I explained here, will go step by step. So here first step is that write our own id generator by implementing interface called identifier generator. So I just have to write one class, that class name is sid generator. I just use that name, you can use any name, and after that we have some here implementing identifier generator, that interface we have to implement. That by implementing the interface called identifier generator, that identifier generator available in org.hibernate.id.identifier generator. So whenever we will write identifier generator, just I will show you this generate method. I just cut it. We have to write our logic inside that. Like that, public class sid generator implement identifier generator. So here it have only one unimplemented method. So what is unimplemented method? That public serialize generate session implementer and object two argument is there, and it is throwing Hibernate exception, and it is returning a particular serializable value. So we can write our logic to generate a primary key. Anything we can implement, like it's the start with the visual path, and it will be generate, or it will be like TCS or anything, like we will generate a PNR, even underscore, even this one, and we can generate it. So as match our project requirement, if identifier generator not provided by Hibernate runtime system or Hibernate as a ORM tool, then we can write our own primary key generator algorithm. So here we can write our logic to generate a primary key. So we have the requirement, how means what the pattern of the primary key. According of that, we will write a primary key generator algorithm. The main thing is that when we going to write a primary key generator algorithm, our class must be implement identifier generator. And when you will implement identifier generator, that have one unimplemented method, that is name is generate, and that return type is serializable, and they are taking a two parameter. That parameter is session implementer and object, and it is throwing a Hibernate exception. Inside that we have to write our logic to generate a primary key. So here what we are going to do, we just wrote this method, and we will take from a student stu, and we will select max stu.sid, and after that what we are doing, what the value will get here, thus increase it, and we will convert into that particular format. So if starting value is there, PNR underscore 001. So if it is increased up to that, then that value will like that. If we have more than this one, then it's like it will generate double digit value. So double digit, again it's become a 3 digit. So if we have a 3 digit itself, then we can no need to add any 0. So we will add like that. So that type of ID generator. So this is a one logic. You can write your own logic. Anything is here. So this logic will be generate a particular primary key, and it will be returned. It will be check in the database, and it will be select highest value, and according of that it will be convert, do some operation, and that operation will be get the what the highest number here in the last after underscore. And we can do that operation here. So we will just increase it, increment, and that pattern will be follow. So ID generator is complete, and after that what we will do, inside the student class, that SID here we are not passing that value. So we no need to pass, because we are again writing our logic to generate, means we are implementing identity generator to implement it. So here we have to think, we will see that one other example where we are directly implementing that identity generator means logic here. When we will initialize that particular value, we will pass SID here, and we will generate that particular object with initialization of primary key also. So whenever we will initialize that value, that time itself we apply our logic to generate a unique primary key. But now we are using this concept of identity generator that available in visualpower.hibernate.sid, and we will register like that. So before of that, I think you remember, here we are using an increment, that automatically it will be take, because Hibernate runtime system have that increment algorithm. But here we are writing our logic to generate a primary key. That logic available under com.visualpower.hibernate.sid generator. So SID will be generate. So SID, what we are doing, again we will check that inside the SID, first task is that SID must be implement identifier generator. If we not implement, then we cannot utilize here like this generator class and this one. So that generator class, when we using ID generator, that generator class must be returned serializable type and must be implemented identifier generator interface. So it is a identifier generator interface implemented. So once it's implement identifier generator interface, it have serialize generate unimplemented method. That method we have to implement. That generator method through return type is serializable, and it have two parameters, that si and object, and after that it is throwing a Hibernate exception. If something it's happened, then it will throw a Hibernate exception. Inside that we have to write our logic to generate a primary key. When we are going to write any logic to generate a primary key, we have to think first. We will check in the particular table and we will get the unique means highest value. If we are using some pattern or kind of thing, then we will check that what the latest pattern is generated, what is the last value generated there, and according of that we will utilize our logic and we will generate some unique primary key, and we will return that primary key. Whenever we are enter any element inside the session, that identity generator is activate and it will be called generate method, and according of that it will be generate a primary key and it will be returned back to the Hibernate session cache, and that primary key will be stored there. So actually whenever Hibernate is running, they have three kind of object: detached object, transient object, as well as persist object. So three kind of object is there: transient object, persist object, and detached object, and according of that three stage is there: transient state, persist stage, and detached state. So transient means whenever we are creating some object, that newly created object, that is called transient object, and that is not participating in any session operation, and that object is called transient object, and a state of that object is called transient state, and the transient object does not contain any identifier or primary key. So whenever this particular object is created like that, here we are created that object, this object. So this object we will call it's a transient object because it is not participating any session operation, and it not have primary key. Up to that we don't have primary key because we have a primary key here in a student SID. We'll just check in the student table, we have a primary key SID here, and here in the identity generator we when we generating the particular as a student, we don't have a SID here, we just have name, email ID, and phone number. So here in SID don't have a not have any primary key, and we are going to just write session.save, and when we are doing the session.save, that time primary key is generated and pushed inside the session key. So I just want to explain about that. This second object, when the primary key will come, it call persist state or persist object. When persist class object is participating in any session operation, then that object is called persist object. A state of that object is called persistent stage, and persistence object contain primary key and identifier. So once the session.save is done, that time only primary key is come. So before of that primary key is not come. So algorithm, because of that algorithm is only it's recommended to use, because we will create a multiple object and we not going to utilize under the session. That time its primary key is not generated, but when we will pass here primary key, then that logic will be false. Even the transient object also have the primary key. That's reason it's recommended to use identifier generator logic if you want your own implementation to write your generator class, as well as you can utilize Hibernate provided algorithm to generate a primary key. Both have both follow the transient property, and it whenever we create a particular object that going to participate in Hibernate runtime operation, and newly created object is not have any primary key, and whenever they participate the session operation, that time only primary key created by the Hibernate or created by our ID generator custom logic, and they are pushing here. So that thing only I just want to explain here. We will come back again here in the point here when we are going to write this identifier generator class, that must be generator identifier, must be implement identifier generator interface, and that have the one single method that called generate, and that return type is serializable public type, and it have a two parameters, session implementer and object, and it is throwing a hibernate exception. So here inside that we have to write our logic, and we have to return some serializable kind of thing, particular value. Even if you write particular string classes, then string classes is already serialized. So public final class string implement serializable comparable. So a string class no need to serialize, but if we want to create some other classes, like any class we want to create, then we have to implement that class as a serializable, because we are doing a string here. So a string automatically serialized, because a string class internally implementing a serializable, so we no need to serialize here. But other than a string, if we use custom classes here, so we have to serialize that. We have to think about that, and according to that we have to write our logic here. So this logic will work, and whenever we will use, it will be generate a primary key kind of thing, like this pattern PNR 001, and it will be add there. So already this class is this table is available there, and that two pattern is matched. Before of that some different pattern, and now we are using some different pattern. So we have to delete that table first, then this program will successfully run. Now we can see that at least one object that will be created, and that is pushing on the database. Yeah, so identifier generated, and it is pushed inside that. So whenever we write session.save, we can like this is a string type, serializable to string. And we can check that what is ID. So here the operation session.save, update, delete, this will be return the particular ID. That ID is a primary key, nothing. So once the operation is done, that will be return the primary key, that what the primary key utilized for doing a particular persistent operation. So here we are save with some persistence operation with some primary key, and that primary key we can get like that. So sometime we have a requirement to verify that value, or we can log that value. We affected, for example, some customer, and that customer transaction is happening, and we deducted some amount on the bank account, or some rollback kind of thing is there, or maybe some amount is deducted but not customer not get. So many exception or many error comes. So according of that we can mark that if we want to log that file, then we will mark as a particular primary key. So even that customer have some unique ID, and that unique ID called as primary key. So particular primary key, through that we can log that customer, that primary key 001 or something that have some rollback, or that transaction is failed. So we can utilize, if this type of requirement is there, somewhere we log the particular primary key, so we can utilize this concept, and we can log here, or we can do that operation. So it is returning the particular primary key where they apply that persistence operation. So we will run it, and we will check that what the primary key generating. So it is generated, because we are creating here, yeah, it's create. So always it's create a new table, and then only apply it. When we will update, maybe it throws some exception, because that identifier generator logic will change. Yeah, no problem. So 1 is already there, so now it is generated 2. So again you will write, then it's 2 already there, it will generate a 3. Yeah, again we will run, then it generates some new. So now it pattern is PNR00. So just run 10 time and we'll see that it adding a 10 or not. So 005 is here. No, 006 is here. 7 is here. 8 is here. 9 itself it's changing, so our logic is not correct. Ten is fine, but 9 is generating like that 009, but we are instead of 009 we have to generate like like 009. So here our logic is failed. Start with PNR 00 plus X. We have to do like that. And again it will fail. So I think X equal to initially it 001 is here, that's the reason. So we will generate like that, then it will be fine. So again we have to do create operation because we have a wrong value there. Create, again the table is created. And we can do itself here. We just have to push that session dot save 4 and I equal to 0. I plus plus. Time we just want to session dot save same SID. Just try what the value it's generating. What's generating 000? No, yeah, because we are always creating here. So we have to update. So we have to run. Actually that value is not saved here, and when we try to retrieve, that exact value is coming. Now it will throw a problem. So we have to check run one by one, otherwise we have to do this call this method in different place in 10 time. Yeah, this logic is not working, so leave about this one. Just run it. 008 is there, 09 is still it is a 09 because it's a start with the 1. We have to change this logic to generate a primary key. So it is start with the 00 and it will be come here, and so it will be passed to 00, and after that it will be increment to 1. id dot substring 4, 1 substring 4. Okay, just we will change that logic. Even it is working, id generator is working, only pattern is not follow. So we will see that how will follow the pattern. So actually problem is there when that algorithm it will check, and when it is increased here, that time it will be a some value, and here it's increase like that. If it's come 8 here, then it will be x equal to 8 plus 1, it will be 9, and here it will check 9, it's not under false in this bracket, so it will be go here. So better of that, what we will do, doing a means one place increment, whenever it will come into the some specific place, we have increment that, and it will be work fine. Now if we generate that what 09 is generated, it will not generate 09, it will generate 009. And here what we are calling a 10 time, we just move this some method like public void add object, insert that add object, we'll write over this logic. And we will call this add object. Lab equal to, we will create this object because we have to call some non-static method, and non-static method we are calling through instance of particular object, lab dot add object. So now we have to write here create, and that first time we will create, and after that we will update. So now I have just create it, and first time we will call like that, we'll check that it is working fine or not, and after that we will call 9 times. So yeah, it is generating PNR 009, and here what we will do, we'll just create one for loop, and we will run 9 or 10 type. So int I equal to 0, I less than 10, and I plus plus. So 10 time we want to do the DV operation. So now we'll check that it is generating perfectly. So here before of that we have to do one, so create is there, again we have to do update, otherwise it's always create a new table and we will get only PNR 000 kind of thing. So I will show you that what exactly if we do create itself, we will get PNR underscore 00 only, because they will create always a new table. Oh, it's save or not save. Okay. So console. So now our ID generator PNR 009 is fine. Before of that it is generating PNR 09 only. So it is a exact fine what exactly we want to do. So we have to push 100 and one time. We'll check that third bracket, that 300 3 digit, it's working fine or not. So 4869, yes. When the terms 3 digit come, now here 009 is there, it will be at 100. So yes, what the pattern we want to generate, it is generating fine, and through that we can call multiple time and data will be generated. If we want to see that table, then we will go to the table also. So we are using a visual path 4. Just MySQL admin will use visual path 4 because we are using a visual path 4 database, and we will show tables here. So what the table we are using, we have to find out. Under the mapping document, student.hbm.xml, and here our table name is my students 1. So my student 1, this table, select star from MySQL my student. My student 1. So it have thousands of record, so all record is generating like that. So all the value is the same here, but we pushing that PNR 001, that ID generator is fine. So we can achieve this way to write our logic to generate a primary key, and we can write any logic, but again we will check that what exact thing we have to do. So here ID generator method we have to write. Inside that ID generator method must be implement identifier generator. So identifier generator is available in org.hibernate.identifier in package. Here org.hibernate.id package, here identifier implementer is there. And even if you see that already provided algorithm, like any algorithm, like increment, hello, sequence, hello, UID, GUID, identity, native, assigned, select. If you see any ID generator algorithm, all ID generator algorithm is internally implementing that identifier generator interface. So all the primary key generation algorithm are the subclass of identifier generator interface. So we will follow the same thing. Whenever we are going to write our logic to generate the identity, we have to write our class that must implement identifier generator interface, because identifier generator interface is a super interface of all the identifier generator thing, even if it is a customized or even it's provided by the Hibernate. So whenever we implement it, it must have one unimplemented method that called serialize. So we'll see that. So when you see that it have only one unimplemented method, that serialize, generate, the two argument, serialization implementer and object as argument, and it is a returning value. So return value type is serializable. So any method, write your custom class that must implement identifier generator interface. So identifier generator interface is the super interface for all the primary key generation algorithm. Either we can write our custom identity generator algorithm, either we can utilize any Hibernate runtime system primary key generator algorithm. So inside the generator method we will write our logic, but must be that what we will return, that return type is serializable, and here that serializable implementer an object that Hibernate runtime system automatically call, and that will be a responsible to call that particular generate method, and each and every time we have to write our own logic to generate a particular primary identifier. So here what we are doing, we just using a string, and we follow the some pattern like a PNR underscore 00. So even if we use a string, so no need to do anything related to serialization kind of thing. But when we try to utilize our custom classes and we would like to create some custom type like a student we want, or like a composite primary key we want to generate, so that must be the implement serializable. Here see that a string, so a string class already have implementation of java.io.serializable and comparable, so we no need to do any serialization thing here. So next what we are doing, we have to check that what is the highest value under the table. According of that only we can generate a primary key. So we are doing that operation session factory sf.hibernate util.get session, and after that session dot open session and transaction we started, and we are passing this HQL. I will show you the next lab how the HQL we are working, but here just remember about two thing. We have to write any HQL from a student stu, this kind of this is a query. So after that session dot create HQL, and we will pass that query HQL here. So we will get the complete student object inside this query queue, and after that what we are doing here, after that queue dot get list will be return all the particular object of related to this student information. So here queue have all the information, and according of that queue we are fetching it, and after that if size is not 00, if size is 00, then we will return PNR underscore 001, because this table is just created and we are not pushed any data, so no need to implement anything. We know that PNR underscore 00 is a first value, and after that we will go there and we will check that size is not 0, means it have some value. Then what we will do, we will select max value student.sid. This is a again HQL, select max stu, that student stu.sid from student stu. So here we are using a object oriented query. So object oriented query must be depend some object. So we are doing from student stu. You can do anything stu, anything your value you will write in place of stu. But here the class name, so class name stu, and that stu you can use here stu.sid, stu. something. So we are selecting max stu.sid from student stu, and after that same session dot create query we are passing that. So we will get the max value. So max value will do that, and object we have, what object is have, we will get this kind of thing. So we just try to understand what the exact value in the last 3 digit. So we will use that substring of 4, and according of that we will get the particular value like that. If here 00 is there, then we will get the 00 here, and after that x we have the 00 complete here in x less than 9. Yes, so after that here we are writing our own logic. So if the value is less than 9, then we will put 00, and if value is 9 less than, then it is a, we will put like that. And after that we are here we are incrementing. Before of that what we are doing, we are incrementing here. So it is a that logic will fail. It will be you use this pattern even the last value of 9, and it will be use this pattern even the value of 99. So we will avoid this thing. We will use all if the condition here inside the if condition, and we will return the particular SID. So SID is a serializable, as I know, I already saw that a string is the serializable value, so we no need to do anything. And other thing that student class will see that as it is here, we will just generate a private string SID, and we have the this default constructor, and here we have the parameterized constructor, and here we not utilize any concept related to primary key, means initialization. Here we will initialize all the other value other than primary key, and we will create and getter setter as it is, nothing change here. And this configuration as it is only we are doing here. If we are creating, we will just write a create, and we will update, then we will just write a update the value. So update the value will be work. And here a student mapping, yeah, this is a main important thing here. So we will write here hibernate mapping, after that package com.visualpath.hibernate and default lazy equal to false, and here class, that the same thing what we are doing with identity generator, we will generate under the ID. So class mapping is started here, class name is equal to student, and table I would like to generate in my student 1. After that ID, inside that ID only we can generate a identifier. So ID, before of that we are using some increment HILO UID something. So but here increment we are using a class particular value com visual path hibernate and SID generator. That SID generator we already wrote here, and that implement here. So we have to register write complete classified path of SID generator. Whenever hibernate runtime system, when the transient object is created, and when that participating in session operation, that time it's automatically call that generator method, and that will be generate a primary key, and that will be pushed into the particular session cache, and that will be commit in the database. So once that object is created, that runtime object, when that transient object is that transient object, no need the primary key, and that concept is follow here. So other than that, we can also create a primary key inside the constructor also. Sometime if we required kind of thing, then we can do also. But problem is there, hibernate define that 3 kind of object like a transient, persist and detach, and they explain about that transient object, that newly created object, if they are not participating any hibernate operation, and that time that object not have primary key. But when we create a default, means parameterize through parameterized constructor, and we will generate a primary key, then that definition will be false. That time even the transient object also contain the primary key. But sometime some scenario we have a requirement to generate this kind of object only, then we can generate it, because any ever our requirement is more important other than follow the some rule. So I will going to explain about that, how that thing we can achieve without writing this generator implementer here, how we can achieve this thing. So here that example is here, and we have the identity generator itself, same thing here. And if you see that we are writing a composite primary key example here, and we don't have a class information or anything here. So how we are achieving this concept? So actually composite primary key means more than one column when we combined, and we will say that this is a primary key. For example, we have a address, and address we don't have a address ID, we have a name, and we have particular pin number or name with house number. So just think about that, one address table that contain many field, but that have the 2 unique field, the name and house number. So according of that, we want to uniquely assign the particular person. So one house must have the unique person, and in the one village must have the unique house number. But maybe the one village many person is there, so village column is not a identical, village column is not a unique. Or for example, that pin code is the just we want to replace this house number concept with the pin code as well as house number as well as a name of the particular person. So we will combine these 3 things and make the unique number. Like that, pin code, in one single pin code many person is staying, but if we combined with pin code with house number, So we have the unique identifier for the particular house number. But again, the one house, many person is stay. So how we can combine? We can combine with the name also there. So now we have a pin code, house number, and name. So combined three thing, it look like it will be a follow the unique number. So one house maybe the more than one two person is not stay. So according of that we can make the three column mark as combined all the three column and make as a primary key. So this kind of means combination of the more than one column we want to make a primary key, then this type of combination be called composite primary key. So how we'll write that composite primary key? So if we first try to create a composite primary key, that must have to we have to generate that particular composite primary key. So we have a student ID here, through that SID. So SID we would like to create a primary key. So what is SID? SID is a separate class. Here what we are doing, we are writing a BID and SID, both two string is there, and we will mark as a both two as a primary key. So here we will generate the particular object of SID. That SID must have the serializable, implementing a serializable, and we will create that object. So SID we have a BID and SID we will create that particular object and make it as a primary key. So here we are using that student SID class as a primary key. So we will start with composite ID. We will provide a name, a student ID, that name of this primary key, and after that class we have a SID that have a two value. The two value we will map here, the key property name is equal to BID, column equal to BID, and type string. Again key property name SID, column SID, and a string we will pass here, and after that we will close that composite key as it is, other field is as it is. So here the primary key we will use like a SID, a student ID, and what we will do here, so we will create that SID also inside that this constructor. Before of that we are using a generator class to generate a identity, but here composite primary key concept automatically generated thing Hibernate is not provided. We have to achieve this functionality by our so here actually we have to do parameterize means constructor to initialize that particular value itself. So we do that. Before of that we are using here identifier generator kind of thing, so we no need to do the identifier generator as Hibernate is not providing any composite primary key generator algorithm kind of thing. They not have any inbuilt functionality to generate a particular value. So we have to so because of that only we will create our primary key generation algorithm here inside that default method, and we will initialize itself here. So how will initialize here? We will initialize here itself. We will pass that first. We will generate a SID, and SID we will generate SID generator dot next SID generator. Here we will pass that particular value and we will generate it. So SID generator have the almost same logic what we will utilize here in the before primary key generator, that will be check and that will be generate in the particular pattern. So but here it will be generate a new SID because now we don't dealing with the string. So here we are dealing with SID. Before of that we are dealing with a string. So we are doing the string value some we will apply in the string value to generate some unique value. Now we are using a SID as a class to achieving the composite primary key. So SID have two value BID and SID, and it must implement that serializable that I already explained about that, because we are using there the string related conversation. So a string no need to do any primary key implementation because a string already implemented. A string class have primary key implementation, But here when we write a composite primary key logic and we want to create some primary key using some class, then we have to must implement that particular class with serializable. So we are already implemented here serializable, and after that here that same logic, when we are adding some new value, there we are just creating a new SID and we are passing this value with x. That x is there, that we utilize x plus 9. So it will be work as it is now with 2 column combined, and it will be create like a SID. So we will just create a student and we will pass here SID itself. Before of that we are not passing any primary key as a means any object. When we are creating, we are not passing the primary key concept. But here when we want to achieve custom primary key, because custom primary key concept not internally provided by the Hibernate, so we have to achieve with our logic. So because of that we are writing that one ID SID class, and after the SID class we have to we have some SID generator, through that we are generating, and even a student class itself we initialize that particular primary key, and after that we are loading that session or whatever we want, we will do that particular operation. So whenever we will run it, it will work and it will be create particular SID with this value. So table is, we will see that what the table and where exactly table they are using. So we are using a visual path 4 itself here, and the table name is my students. So visual path we are there, visual path. So my student 1, it's my student. So here they created BID 31, SID 002, name and this thing. So according of this BID and SID will mark as a primary key, both utilize as a primary key and other value as it is. So combination of BID SID be unique, BID even not unique, SID even not unique, but when we combine both value it will be a follow the unique condition and it will be a unique. So this way we can achieve a composite primary key concept. So now I am thinking this 2 parts is done, where we can write our composite primary key as well as we can write our custom primary key. So again we already see that how we can achieve this functionality. I just explain about that theoretical, then it will be clear. So whenever we going to write our custom primary key ID generator, that must be implement identifier generator interface that is available in org.hibernate.id.identifier generator package. After that it have one unimplemented method, that is a generate, that return type is serializable, that is a public, and it is it have a 2 parameter, that session implementer SI and object obj. We are not internally means calling this generate method when we writing a custom primary key. Hibernate runtime system is responsible to call when we are doing the operation. Just we have to mark the class, particular class we will register is inside that ID generator. When we will create this ID column equal to SID, name equal to SID, when we are writing in this class, inside that class primary key generator, we just have to mark as a generate class, and we have to provide complete classified path of our identity generator like SID generator, that must be implement the interface identifier generator, and that must be implemented the interface method, particular method generate, that return type is serializable, and that have a 2 parameter, and it is throwing a Hibernate exception. After that it is automatically work. Whenever primary key required, Hibernate system will be contact this identifier generator and will generate, and that primary key will be pushed into the session cache when it is going to the transaction. The next concept is there composite primary key, that I already explained about that. If one column is not enough to identify or make a unique value, then we can combine the 2 or 3 column. For example, I have a address table have a house number, name, pin code kind of thing. So here we don't want to create some unique identification of the particular person. So what already value is there, we want to combine that value and we want to generate a primary key. So for example, if house number and name we will combine, then maybe the address bit will be become a unique. on maybe we can combine house number, pin code and name. So according of this all three column, maybe we can achieve the unique. So we will make like that one class that have three variable, name, pin code and house number. After that we will write our composite primary key logic to generate it, and we will initialize that particular class during that when we are doing that address initialization itself, and we will pass into the default constructor, and through default constructor itself we will generate object and we will do that operation. So what exactly we are doing? So SID, that same thing we will, what I explained, that we will here BID SID example is there. In the address table you can add here three things like a pin code, name and house number, and after that you will write a default constructor, parameterized constructor and setter getter method. One more thing you have to must implement here, that SID class must be implement the serialization, because it doing the operation outside the JVM also, so must have to initialize it. After that customer means custom ID generator, we have to write this logic to generate this code, and whenever we create the student object, here the parameter means parameterized constructor is there, through that we can pass this SID and we will generate. And here what we have to do in HBM means document, we have to write composite ID, and after that ID property we have to register both thing, and here start with the composite ID. Before of that we are using a generator. So when we use a composite, we have to use composite ID, we have to provide name, class and this kind of concept, and we can achieve through that this functionality, we can generate it. So now I am thinking primary key concept is clear. We have a multiple primary key that provided by Hibernate, like that increment, HILO, sequence, sequence hilo, UID, GUID, identity, native, assigned, select. So we can utilize any identifier generator, even other identity generator also provided by the Hibernate. We can check in the latest Hibernate document and we will see that how different kind of identity generator provided by Hibernate. So according of that we can utilize that particular code and we will map it. If it is not enough to generate our primary key, so we have the custom primary key also. So inside the custom primary key we are implementing identifier generator interface that is available org.hibernate.identifier generator package, and after that we are calling this generate method, that is return type is serializable. It have a 2 parameter and it is throwing a Hibernate exception, and after that we will call this we will register this class inside that generator class. Before of that we are using a direct any identifier generator like a hilo, sequence hilo or increment kind of thing, but here we will register the complete classified path of the particular class. So this way we can achieve our custom primary key generator, that I already show you that how we can achieve it. And the next thing is that even if that one single column is not enough to make as a primary key, so we can make combine 2 or 3 column and mark as a primary key. So this type of combination is called composite primary key. So composite primary key Hibernate not have inbuilt support anything, so we have to achieve this primary key by writing our code. So what we are doing, so we are writing some logic, same logic to a SID generator, and here we have to create one class. That class must have all the field inside that, like this SID. So SID have BID and SID, so we will mark as a primary key. We will add here in the student this SID as a primary key, and after that SID we are initializing itself here, and we will create that SID class object first, like that. When we go to the SID generator, in SID generator we are creating this SID equal to new SID and mark as a primary key. So whenever we will create this object will be utilized as a primary key, and we will register this thing under the here under the composite ID, and we will register both the key, and it will be work as a composite primary key. So now we have a very clear picture of the Hibernate provided primary key that comes under the simple primary key. Even this primary key is not enough, not fit for our project, then we can generate our own primary key logic. That logic I already explained that how we can do. Even if that is also not fit and we want to only combine 2 or 3 column and make like a composite primary key, then we can also do the same thing and we can achieve this functionality also. So this is a way how we can achieve this composite primary key through Hibernate core functionality, and we can do the same thing with the annotations. So annotation, what we are doing, what we are writing as a means functionality of SID, we have to mark that class with embeddable. So embeddable, what we will do, that will be a point out that this class is going to make as a composite primary key, and after that we have to do as it is, nothing will change, only this class SID class, this SID class we will add with embeddable here as a annotation. And after that, when we write a SID generator, it is as it is, with nothing, no changes is here in SID generator. Whenever we register that composite primary key, that we are doing that Hibernate annotation mapping here, like what the mapping we did here under the composite ID. Now in the annotation mapping, we don't have, we going to utilize the any .hbm.xml file. So we have removed the complete concept and we will put into the class itself, entity class itself. So there we have utilized few things. So here we have start with the ID and composite ID we are going to use. So we have to mark as @embedded, and after that we have to write @attribute override. So in the inside the attribute override, all the value we have to push that all the column we will mark as a primary key. So we are using a 2 column as a primary key, like a BID and SID, and we are combining those both column and make as a primary key. So before of that we will use @attribute overrides, and after that all the attributes what we going to override we will mark here attribute overrides, and we will provide a name. We are going to mark as a BID and column, what column you want to generate under the table when we will generate. So we will mark as a @column name equal to BID. Same thing we will do with SID. So that only changes is required when we will going to deal with composite primary key generation in annotation way other than as it is. So we have to change only 2 things. One, the student class we have to change this, we have to use embedded, and after that we have to use @attributes. Inside that attributes we will use @override, and here it's attributes overrides. So multiple thing is there S. After that we have attribute override, name that particular class and what column you are generating. So this is a pattern, we will register it. So you just have to remember these patterns. So we have a 2 attribute. So under the attribute overrides S, we have a 2 attribute override with name BID and SID. That column also the name we want BID and SID, and here that SID class you have to mark as @embeddable, and it will work as it is. Just try to change it this few things and the same class, and utilize a annotations jar file, means like a Hibernate 3.2 jars or any latest jar, it will be work fine, no need to change anything. So in this video we completed how we can create a customized primary key utilizing a identifier generator interface, how we can write a custom composite primary key with Hibernate core, as well as how we can write a custom primary key utilizing a annotations way. So just try it and try to create a project with all the 3 concept, and all as well as change that logic. You just create your own logic to generate different kind of primary key, different kind of composite primary key, utilizing a core concept, utilizing a annotation concept. So now I am thinking it's the primary key and composite key concept is very clear, and we can create our own primary key also. We can utilize Hibernate runtime system provided primary key also. So just try to utilize all the concept. Next I will explain about SQL. So what is SQL query and how we can achieve all the query concept here. So till now, thanks for watching this video.